intuitive thing before the thinking brain knows what's happening. So a real emotion, according to me, is an impulse based on what's happening in the present around you. And it's picking up, it's a way of knowing. It's a way of knowing what's going on. As the way seeing is a way of knowing, and hearing is a way of knowing, emotion provides a way of knowing. And a real emotion is an emotion that's telling you something about your environment right now, and it implies an action. That's my definition of a real emotion.
That's great. That's great, Dr. Because I was also looking at the fact of, and we was talking about, we mentioned just now about the value, self-value as well, that if I really don't believe that I can accomplish a certain goal, then as soon as it looks like it's real and it's about to happen, again, I defeat myself and I sabotage my opportunities. And I was thinking about it, one aspect that you have a lot of men who are adult men who have not had a father at youth. So they have not really had an example that they can learn from or follow in how to be a man as they become into the manly age. How do I really be a man? What is the examples in being a man? I've had so many examples that I wasn't raised with one, and I've picked so many wrong ones so many times. Am I really sabotaging myself consciously with full understanding, or sometimes am I just trying to look and search out and find out who am I for real? You know, what is the real example of the man that I want to follow the path, the pattern after? You know, because I didn't have one. When you have so many men that have been raised up in that situation, and a lot of them are gangbangers today.
Everything that you're saying has real validity. But for the purposes of this discussion for me, I want to keep it at the level of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
You said that part of the issue is I don't know if I can handle it as a man would, correct?
Yes.
I'm doubting, there's the doubt in oneself. And that, you said, contributes to self-sabotage.
Right.
What I would say is, you see, this goes back to what is an imagined emotion. An imagined emotion is an emotion, it's an impulse, but it's not based on the present, it's based on the past. Mm-hmm. To make the distinction, only the thinking brain can make that distinction. This is deep shit. Again, it's in that book, it'll explain it. But, you see, you have the feeling that you don't think, you're doubting that you can accomplish what you say what's in front of you, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would say is, it's not that you're doubting that you can accomplish it. It's you don't trust that you can deal with the feelings of not accomplishing it.
Wow.
You're doubting. Of course you're going to have questions. Of course you're not going to accomplish it the way you want to.
Wow.
As someone who's accomplished a fair amount in my life, I would say, of course, I can't tell you what I haven't accomplished. I've dedicated myself for 10 years at things and haven't gotten what I wanted. So what I would say for you is, for sure you're not going to accomplish all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But you got to deal with the feelings that you get, because the ones that come from the past that you use to belittle yourself and berate yourself and tell yourself all this negative stuff about yourself, you see, that's what is held in the imagined emotional world. That's what you could learn how to process differently. That's why I talk the work of emotional intelligence. Historically, the only time people talked about psychology was to go to a psychologist, to be with a shrink, to fix a problem. It was always about a problem. You went to psychology to fix a problem. You had a couples problem, you went to a couples counselor. You got a drug problem, you go to a drug counselor. You got an anger problem, you go to an anger, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about problems. And what I'm attempting to communicate here is that this can be now about education. This can be part of our education, beginning to learn these things. Yes, there are times that, of course, you will benefit from going to somebody who can help you figure this stuff out. Definitely. But there's a lot that we can do for ourselves when you begin to understand the foundations of emotion. Just the idea that you have an emotional brain that produces emotion, like you have a reptilian brain that produces a heartbeat, that can liberate so many people, because many people judge themselves for how they feel. I'm not supposed to have that feeling. Oh, my God. The feeling could be love. You could love somebody and say, I'm not supposed to have that feeling. Or you could hate somebody, or you could be angry at somebody, or whatever. Or you could be afraid of somebody. Right. You can't help what you feel. That just understanding that is liberating for many people who judge themselves. When you get into the understanding of a real and imagined emotion, this is a huge distinction. You have God knows how many theories of the psyche that have their different reasons why these imaginary emotions made their impact. All the way starting with Freudian analysis. All of the depth psychologies. There's all kinds of theories. There's attachment theory. There's cognitive behavioral theory. There's psychoanalytic theory. There's Jungian theory. There's this theory. There's that theory. And there's validity to all of them. They all are seeing the psyche, like the blind. I told the story of the blind man and the elephant one time. They're all holding some part of the elephant, and they think they see the whole elephant, but they're only holding the trunk, which is very different from the tail or the leg. So all of these theories of psychology have validity, and they're helpful and valuable for people if you pursue them. But the idea behind it is that the psyche, the emotional mind, the emotional brain absorbs experience and remembers it, and we hold it in the body. But the emotional brain doesn't have memory. So for instance, if I showed you a picture, and I tell this story, if I showed you a picture of your 5th birthday party, and you saw yourself in your favorite little suit and a hat, and you saw the people there, and then something happened at that party, maybe something that was really happy or something that was really made you angry and upset or sad or whatever, and you saw the picture and you'd have the feeling in the moment. Because all emotion happens in the moment. So you'd have the feeling in the moment, but since you're looking at a picture, even if you felt really sad, you could look at the picture and you would remember, oh yeah, that's the sadness. I felt really sad about when Uncle Charlie did that. I felt sad. So you'd have the emotion, but the thinking brain understands time. So with the thinking brain, you say, oh, that emotion was the emotion of my 5-year-old birthday party. But what happens is we have the re-experiencing, the triggering of these old emotions. Oh my God, I'm going to fail. Oh my God, my fear of failure. Or my fear of success. And it triggers the historical moment, but the thinking brain isn't involved. We don't know it's the past. We think it's the present. We think it's just because you have the feeling that it's really about the present, that it's a real emotion. It's about the present, and it's informing you. But oftentimes, it's not.
Wow.
And so understanding the concept between a real and an imagined emotion is a big deal when we start to do that. It's the entryway to another level of self-exploration. And going back to the characters at the table, I think one of the challenges of more advanced stages of adult development is when you begin to look at the protector-saboteur. You say, hey, I have a protector-saboteur. I understand how I picked up that pattern back there, and now I know it's imagined. So I'm going to stop buying into that idea when it comes into my brain. I'm going to use the breathing, and I've been teaching the breathing here. Inhale, 2, 3, pause, 3 heartbeats. Exhale, 2, 3, pause, 3 heartbeats. So you use the breathing in that moment to break your identification with that thought, and you free yourself from the pattern.
I'm glad you brought that up, Douglas.
What do you think about what I'm saying here? I'm
glad you brought that up, because I was just going to ask you, because you still have the experience, even though with the understanding that you're giving us right now, you still have that physical experience. So I'm glad you brought up the breathing.
Yes, you will still have the experience, and the challenge is to remind yourself, this is the past. This is what it was like for me when I was a kid. This is not about the present. It hurts like hell. It's painful to feel this way, but guess what? It's my past. It's not my present. I don't have to believe it anymore because I know the difference now. Now I got to deal with how do I get this stuff out of my body, and there are ways of expressing the emotion. Art, poetry, sharing it with friends. There are ways, writing, journaling. There are ways, now once you realize that it's the voice of the past that you're confusing with the present, now you can work on it in different ways. There's nothing easy about it. This is a developmental task. This is a task to go into higher levels of, I would say, maturity. When you're willing and able to look at yourself and deal with your emotions from a more centered, calm point of view, you're working on developing yourself. Because our culture does not allow for this kind of stuff. Our culture, I was listening to these tapes by a guy named Alan Watts, Buddhist philosopher, Zen philosopher, the other day. And he said in 1958, he said, you know, our culture no longer has shame about sex the way we used to. But now the shame is about tenderness. He said we're ashamed to be tender and soft and loving. And so we protect ourselves from it. And we hide from it. And we back away from relationships because of it. And we isolate ourselves. And then, because we shut down that part of ourselves, we develop these antagonistic behaviors as a way of acting out to even make connection with the people. That was his theory. But I agree with him about the challenge is now to be vulnerable, to deal with the fact that you might feel like a failure. You might feel like a failure. Wow, no fun. How am I going to deal myself when that happens? Do I have somebody I can talk to about it and tell them I feel like a failure? It reminds me of when I was 5 or 7 or 9 years old and this is what happened. Can you go there? You don't need a shrink for that. You can go to a shrink for that. So that's why I want to stay on track with the emotional intelligence, because I feel like this is valuable information that should be part of education now. It shouldn't be around the field that you have to be a psychologist. I've mentioned in the past, I gave a talk 6 months ago. It was called Occupy Psychology. And the idea was that psychology has been taken over by medicine, psychiatry, and that the only time people think about psychology is to deal with illness. The difference is with emotional intelligence, we take that out of the doctor's office. Yes, there are times when you really will benefit from a professional to help you deal with some serious business. That's what I do for a living. But a lot of the value of people going for traditional analysis and therapy is simply to get in touch with the place of tenderness inside of them, their soul, the place that feels. And when we can begin to learn about emotional development as a basic educational moment, that changes everything. I'm teaching it to an entire inner city school now. I'm very excited. I think this is the 4th or 5th week. As a matter of fact, Michael's coming down this week, right? Friday.
It's going to be great. Can't wait. Can't wait.
Hey, you want to say something about, let's do an advertisement. Say something about your experience with the Taming Your Anger program, if you would.
Yeah, I've had a great opportunity to work with Dr. Wolf with the Taming Your Anger program. And what I've learned is that I don't have to be controlled by my emotions. I don't have to let my emotions direct my thinking and what I'm going to do or how I have to respond to certain things. I was able to learn about how my body physically responds when I become angry. It's like triggers that let me know, Mike, you're about to lose it, or Mike, your body is going to a place where you could lose control. I've also learned that there's nothing wrong with being or feeling the emotion of anger, but I have certain rules that I must follow. I can't injure myself, I can't injure other people, nor can I damage or injure property, and sometimes injuring other people is through the words that you speak. You're going to feel the emotion, it must be discharged and released, but Dr. Wolf is giving me avenues to be able to release those emotions. you know, and not be upset by them. Even biblically they say, be angry but sin not. You know, so there's always an avenue that you can release to deal with these things, but through your